Ralph Mupita has been the Chief Executive of Old Mutual Emerging Markets since February 2012. The one thing I never do when I am facilitating a conference like this is to read a curriculum vitae. Most of the time they are too long to read, and most of the time they just make me upset because I have achieved nothing like our speakers have achieved today. But the one thing that did fascinate me about Ralph's list of immense accomplishments is that he started out as an engineer. And I'm hoping, Ralph, that you'll be able to engage us this morning in some practices of good engineering and how that ties to leadership. Please, can I ask you to join me on the stage?
Very good morning to you all. How are you feeling today? Now, the energy level here is too low. Good morning. That's more like it. You're young, you're vital, you're the leadership of today and the leadership of tomorrow. And I'm really pleased to be here. And on behalf of Old Mutual, sponsoring such a platform as this is really important to us because as we look around ourselves, the solutions and the issues that we face in the world today all have to really do with leadership. Leadership is actually what is the most important ingredient from my perspective in the way that we tackle the challenges that are ahead of us. At no time in history do I think leadership has mattered as much as it does today. If you sit back and you look at a global context, whether you look at a country context, you look at communities, you look at companies, you look at individuals, leadership truly matters today. We're living in a world where there are forces that are changing, and they're changing very fast. You're seeing in different parts of the world socio and geopolitical challenges and issues. There's terrorism that's sprouting out in many parts of the world. You're seeing growth, economic growth, that is not equal. People talking now about the 1%ers who have all the wealth leaving the 99% behind. And somehow the world has to fashion a new narrative that has inclusive growth at the center. You're also seeing countries with social strife and turmoil. And even in our own country here in South Africa, there are challenges that we're facing. And without truly getting to the leadership and the leadership coming forward to solve some of the problems we face, our challenges will overcome us. And in companies, there are all sorts of challenges that we face. Most of us here work for some company or have started a company or running our own companies. And there are lots of challenges that we face. And only leadership will be able to unlock. But I would beg to start by saying true leadership starts at the individual level. And Jeremy has done work for most of us today when I come on the podium and speak, because it really starts with the individual and the self. Now, my story is a very humble one. I'd like to see it as a very humble story. I was asked to lead the Old Mutual Emerging Markets businesses in 2012. I was 39 years of age at that stage. The board entrusted me with the responsibility for looking after a business that had operations in South Africa, in the rest of Africa, in Latin America, and in Asia. We have over 9 million customers across 3 continents. We have 22,000 staff that work in our institution, and we manage about 900 billion rand of client funds on their behalf. So it was a tremendous privilege and honor. And the team and I, like to think that we've been doing a reasonably good job. But at the core of what we're trying to do is to lead this organization and put it, make sure that when we pass it on, it'll be in better shape than when we found it. And as I look at my own career and how I've grown up, as I said, I've been very privileged. I grew up in a very humble home, the third of 4 children. My mother was a nurse, my father was a teacher, and they gave me the grounding that many of us sitting here have been given, which is education shall set you free. No matter how challenged your economic circumstances may start off in life, if you embrace education, that will ultimately set you free. And I learned there and then that, the limitations that one has are all limitations that are self-imprinted, and actually you can achieve a lot through your life. So having had that base of growing up in a family Number 3 out of 4, and I'm sure there are many number 3s out of 4 here, the thing you'll remember is number 3 out of 4, you're always fighting for something. There's always an older sibling who is bigger and stronger and wants to eat your supper, or a younger sibling who everybody feels a lot more sympathy for than yourself. So you have to learn to look after yourself when you grow. So I grew up in that environment where education was fiercely and put on a pedestal as the key enabler to setting you free and achieving the aspirations that you have for yourself. And I went through schools, and I managed to go through. I never went to a private school. I just went to government schools. Eventually, I landed at the University of Cape Town and studied my engineering degree. Now, Jeremy, there is very little that I can take forward from trying to connect between engineering and leadership. Suffice to say that it taught me a lot about solving problems. I started off my life as an engineer and worked on construction projects all over the Western Cape. And I learned to work with people who were not as educated as I was, but who knew more than I was. And that taught me a lot of humility. Some people didn't even have matric, but they were great bricklayers, they were great steel fixers, and they taught me a lot. I was always imbibing, feeding, and learning from these people in the years that I worked as an engineer. And then eventually, I changed career. I went to do an MBA at University of Cape Town. And that's how I ended up in financial services. I'd never planned to be in financial services. And one thing I'll always give you, or I'll give you as something to take away, is that when you're having these perfect plans, things happen to you. And I was quite open and to possibilities. I was going to go and work in investment banking, and then after my MBA, and I spoke to one particular company, and then I realized what they stood for wasn't what I wanted. And I went to Old Mutual, and Old Mutual, who had then at that stage taken up all the fees and expenses for my MBA at that particular point, said, come and join us. And my first time joining, I wanted to work in asset management. And then I went to an interview in asset management, and the gentleman who was interviewing me took all of 2 minutes and then paused and said, we don't like you, you're an engineer, we wanted a chartered accountant to do the role you want. So I failed dismally at that interview, and I went to work in the life company as opposed to asset management company. And then from then on, got a lot of opportunities that took me forward. So I've also been lucky at some level in my own career, but I think at the base there are a couple of things that I certainly believe that have helped me in my journey and with my team to try and lead our business that we have today in Old Mutual. So the thing that I think is most profound that I've learned in my life in thinking about leadership is that you must organize your life around a greater purpose. You cannot lead if you do not have a sense of purpose. You do not have a sense of who you are and what you believe you can achieve. And that sense of purpose is unique for every single one of you. It may be the same for some of you, but it isn't something that you try and copy from somebody. Purpose is something that you start by looking deep in yourself and understanding who you are and what you're here to do on this earth. And without that very clear and strong organizing sense of purpose, I think as a leader you will struggle, because there are going to be tides and waves that come and buttress against you, and you need to stand strong. And I must say that that is the most profound lesson that I have learned from a leadership, is organize your life around a greater purpose. The purpose that we have at Old Mutual happens to be the same purpose that I have in my life. And that purpose is to enable people to have a better life. So we really, really at Old Mutual believe in enabling better futures. That's what I want to do. I want to work with people and make sure that other people have a better life. I don't want to work on my own. I want to work with others to deliver that. So think deeply about what your purpose is, and are you organizing your life around it? The second lesson I've learned is about aiming high. You can come from very humble beginnings like myself and achieve a lot, as long as you are aiming high. Aim to be world class. Do not stand for second best. Do not look at people in China and the US and say they are better. I'm an African, I'm a lesser human being. You are just as good as anybody. When I went to Harvard, I spent 2 months in Harvard in 2007, and I went to one of these exec education programs. And there we had people from all over the world. People were leading their organizations, and are doing tremendously great things. I was one of two Africans on that program. There were about 80 people, and for 2 months, we were sharing and learning and developing ourselves. And at that session, at that Exec Edge program, the thing that struck me was, and I say this with all the humility I can muster, is I was very clear in my mind when I left there that I am part of a world-class set of individuals and leaders. And nothing to do with having been exposed to an American way of doing things, a British way or Japanese way. It's because here, on this African continent, we are world-class, and we can be world-class if we aim high. So my second challenge to you, as you think about your leadership and your growth, your leaders today, you're going to be leaders tomorrow, is aim high. Don't take second prize. Don't think of yourself lesser than others. The third area I would like to share is really about the point that Jeremy made, humility, but humility with fierce resolve. A lot of people see humility as meekness, as a lack of will and drive and the ability to drive success. I say you have to bring humility together with fierce resolve. And fierce resolve is really about never, ever giving up. No matter what you face in life, as a leader, you're going to meet many challenges and obstacles. There are many people going to say no to you. You bring a business plan forward, and people are going to reject it. If you have organized your life around the greater purpose, if you are aiming high, you should, and you have the humility, fierce resolve will take you through. Fierce resolve is an unbending intent to do what you believe to be right. And belief is really critical. You have to really believe. But again, self-knowledge that comes from purpose is critical. So that's the other area that I have certainly learned in my young life to embrace. Have the humility, but fierce resolve. Humility is not meekness. It is power and it is strength. The other area that I've learned in my life around the leadership journey, and again, as I said, I'm still learning. I'll never stop learning. And please also, in your frameworks and your understanding, believe that you never stop learning. The other area that I've learned is certainly to put others before yourself. By putting others before yourself, you put yourself in front. When I work with my teams, I know I can achieve only so much by myself. But if I work with others, it isn't an additive factor. It is a multiplicative factor of bringing great teams. When I have 5 people, I don't have 1 + 1 + 1 + 1 = 5. I have 25. The power of teams and people who have same purpose and intention as you is amazing and is tremendous. And it is the only thing that truly transforms societies and organizations. And so thinking about how do you put others ahead. Others may be your customers, others may be your suppliers, others may be staff that work with you. See yourself in that context of putting them ahead. Likewise, as you think about putting them ahead, think of your style of leadership. I like to characterize my style of leadership as servant leadership. Many people have written books around servant leadership. And to me, servant leadership is about asking my team, my customers, my suppliers, and others, how can I help you become more successful? And through their success, I eventually become successful. So that aspect of serving others, putting service at the core of your leadership, I think will really serve you well in the way you develop and build your businesses. I certainly also believe that there has to be a constant renewal of self when you're a leader. You must read up, try and find out what's happening in the world. Yes, the euro may be far, you may not have customers in Europe, but understand what's happening with the euro versus the dollar. Why should that affect my business one day? I'm trading here, building a business in rand revenues and rand costs. Why should I worry about it? You should worry about it because it does impact. Our world is a globally connected world, and you must be in a place where you're able to understand what's around you. Constantly reinvent yourself, learn all the time. Never stop learning. Keep reading. As Jeremy said, people are now spending hours working and they don't do the 8 to 5 anymore. They do 50 nowadays. I mean, I certainly am always on. My family sometimes say to me, Daddy, put your phone away. It's time for dinner. And stop reading that book or that magazine. You must constantly have an insatiable appetite for what's surrounding you, because in understanding that, there come in the opportunities for you to build your business, for you to build your career, and be the leader that your inherent potential has. So those are some of the things that I certainly have learned in my short life, in my young life. There's a lot more I'll learn, and if I come back on this podium in 10 years' time, I'll have a completely different story. But some of the issues will remain constant. And as I said, if you start with organizing your life around a greater purpose and have deep self-knowledge, you will succeed. If you aim high and see yourself as world-class, you will succeed. If you have humility at the core and fierce resolve, you absolutely will succeed. If you have servant leadership as the characteristic of your leadership style, I promise you, you will succeed. It has served me well. It has served my colleagues at Old Mutual well. We believe we're running one of the premier South African businesses, and we're young. We're a young team. And as you'll meet and mingle with some of the leadership that you see from here in Old Mutual, these are people who are under 45 years of age and running a big business and actually making a difference. And what we do, certainly all of you sitting here are either already doing or can do. The ability to become a world-class leader who shapes and makes a difference in this complex global world where there are all these challenges that I spoke about in the beginning. Those things can be solved. They can be solved by leadership who have strong intent. They can be solved by you. And the future belongs to us as the younger generation. And I put myself in the younger generation. I'm sure I'm older than several of you. But if we are really to build a better future, it's got to start with us. It's got to start with us leading and having the intent, and it's all available here. My challenge to you as you spend your time today is to really open your minds to the lessons and the experiences and the stories that are being told, because I am of the belief that your story can be even 10 to 20 times more inspiring than my story. It is very, very possible. Every one of us are leaders. You don't necessarily have to be a CEO of a company to lead. Start leading yourself, then lead others, but it's got to start with yourself. And I really do hope that throughout today, you really take 2 or 3 things, and maybe one of those 2 or 3 things is something that I've said. Lead well, lead strongly, make a difference in the future. Thank you, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Ralph, I for one am extremely disappointed in what you had to say. When we had a pre-speech briefing, I said, could you speak for 15 minutes? And you spoke for 15 minutes and 27 seconds. It's not good enough. One of the things that I am asked to do is to link from speaker to speaker, and therefore I sit and I take careful notes about the important things that speakers have said, and then I build a bridge to the next speaker. And Ralph, and thank you very much, by the way. I think the main point that I got out of your inspiring address was that your siblings ate your lunch. And so, ladies and gentlemen, if Ralph is still with us, and I hope he is, during the lunch break at the buffet table, could I ask, just make room for the guy? Let the man eat first, for goodness sake. He's paying for all of this. All right.